Hey everybody, it's Jenny McGarvey, and I wanted to walk you through the basics of stamping. If you are new to stamping, this is going to give you a whole lot of information that will hopefully help you on your journey. If you have stamped before, hopefully you'll learn a thing or two, and if you're not remote, all right, so let's start by talking about the stamps themselves. I'm going to talk about stamps, I'm going to talk about inks, I'm going to talk about stamping and cleaning your stamps in this video. I'm not going to really dive into doing a layout or doing any sort of decorative stamping today. This is just the basics for those of you that are new to stamping. I have done other videos like this in the past. You just have to scroll back on my channel. All right, so I want to start out by saying that you really want to buy photopolymer stamp sets. You do not want to buy acrylic stamp sets. Acrylic stamp sets are cheaper. They're much cheaper. However, the quality of the stamps is not good, and you will not get a good impression, and you'll be very frustrated. And okay, so photopolymer stamps just give you a significantly better impression. They're usually made in the United States, which is, a bonus, of course, but you're just going to be so much happier with the finished result. And that's why I only recommend people buy photopolymer stamps, because I feel like, especially if you're new at this, you're just going to be frustrated with acrylic stamps. Now, sometimes they will stain. So for example, you might be able to see that on this particular stamp set, that this one is a little bit stained. That is okay. It does not hurt the stamps at all. And quite frankly, you should be so proud you're using them, which is definitely the key. So these are just a couple of stamp sets that I had on my desk, and so many amazing stamps out there. So go forth, but you want to be using a photopolymer, and they will be a little more expensive. Now let's talk about inks. Honestly, my favorite ink in the whole world, and I recommend to everyone, but again, especially new people, is VersaFine. VersaFine is a pigment ink. That means it sits on top of the paper. Pigment ink takes a little bit longer to dry. What's a little bit special about VersaFine is that it is formulated to dry fast, and it's formulated for small details. This makes it especially great for planner stamps, as planner stamps tend to be very tiny. So for example, you might have some icons or something like that. They're so small, and look at those little details. You want to capture them, and VersaFine is great for that. And then, like I said, it dries fast, and honestly, it gives you a good impression all the time. So you use this and you use a photopolymer stamp set, you're going to be so much happier. Anyway, I have been using this exact same ink pad for minimum 9 years, but it might be longer. I've never re-inked it or anything like that, and it's still working wonderfully. So you can see I have washi tape on the back from traveling with it. I mean, I use this stamp set or this ink pad every week, sometimes every day, and it is just a workhorse. And I will never recommend, okay, I shouldn't say never, but this will always be my first choice ink. Again, this is a pigment ink. Now, another type of pigment ink is chalk ink. People love chalk inks. The one negative to chalk ink, because it's beautiful, it works really well, and it gives you a stunning result, is that it can take forever to dry. I will show you a little bit later how I stamp in my Hobonichi with these Versamagic chalk inks and use my heat tool to dry them a lot faster. However, it's definitely a thing. It takes a lot longer for these to dry. So it's one reason why VersaFine is such a great choice, but there is a limited number of colors in VersaFine. So a pigment ink, like chalk ink or any other pigment ink, is a really solid choice because it sits on top of the paper. It's great for planners, honestly, because it doesn't soak through the paper and bleed onto the back. In some instances, like card making and things like that, it's really not that important because you're going to put something underneath it anyway. But for planners, you need it to not bleed through. This is another one of the VersaFine. This is VersaFine Clear. They have a fairly decent selection of colors, but it is not a wide range of colors. Now, another type of ink that you will commonly see is a dye ink. Now, what does that mean? Dye ink is different. It typically has a different type of pad, although not always. And dye ink dyes the fibers of the paper. So it soaks in and it dyes them. So it actually dries really fast. It's a great ink for that. However, for planners, it can be dicey because it does soak through and oftentimes bleeds onto the back. And for sure, a lot and most of the time some heavy shadowing. So, but there are so many exquisite colors in dye ink and they can be really fun to use. And like I said, they dry super fast. So you just sort of have to take what you can get, but that's why I feel like VersaFine is a really, really awesome option because it dries super fast and it is great for details and it's pigment, so it sits on top of the paper. All right, so those are the different types of inks. There are other inks out there. There's really not that many options or need for them, to be honest. Like, you don't need a solvent ink very often. I hardly ever use it, and I stamp a lot, multiple times a week. So, you know, I just really recommend sticking with a dye ink or a pigment ink. That is for sure. Now, a lot of these things will make a big difference on the paper that you are using. So I have pulled out two planners here. This is a Happy Planner. This was, I believe it's a 2023, 2024. This is a Archer and Olive planner. And then I also have my Hobonichi as well, which has Tomoe River paper. So I'm gonna show you stamping on all of these three things. All right, so when you start to stamp, okay, what are we gonna do? Let's pull out, because maybe you bought some stamps for a journal or for a planner. And so you want something like things to remember, okay? So we're gonna pull that off the backing. There is a clear backing sheet. Do not throw that away. You need it to help store this ink pad. And then there is the front heavier acetate, and it has the printed words on that thing. You simply pull, I already showed you this, but you pull the clear image off the back. One side is flat, one side is completely bumpy. All right, so you'll need a clear block to put your stamp on. Now, you will see people saying, oh, I use the bottom of a clear glass. I use the top of this lid. You can, you absolutely can. However, again, that's a lot harder and you're not setting yourself up for success to do good. And you'll buy these supplies, you'll spend the money on this, and you're going to want to get the best possible outcome. Therefore, I don't recommend using those types of things. I mean, maybe much later when you are much more comfortable with stamping, but at this point, it's much, much harder. So you'll take this stamp, and the best course of action is to choose a block that is a similar size. So obviously this one is too small. This one is actually exceptionally close, but I'm going to rule that one out as well. So I'd use one of these stamp blocks, and truth be told, because I have so many different ones, I'd probably choose one of these too, because this one's a little bit bigger. Now, of course, you're going to be limited. You're not going to want to buy 15 or 20 different stamp blocks. I happen to have a lot of them. I've been doing this a really long time, and I also do this for work, and so I have a ton of them. However, you're going to want to get one that matches in size to your clear stamp. It just, again, it's really helpful, and it'll give you the best opportunity to not, have problems stamping and putting it on there and stuff like that. So for example, you can purchase a This is a 4x6 stamp block, okay? You can purchase a 4x6 stamp block, and you might be like, yeah, I'm gonna purchase that because then I can use it for everything. But it's pretty absurd to stamp with this, and honestly, it's just more difficult. So I will link up, I don't own these stamp blocks, but I found a set on Amazon that's like $10 for 3 or 4 smaller ones. And it looks like it would be a really good starter stamp, clear block stamp for your stamps. So I think that's the way that I would go. Okay, so then you stick the clear, or the smooth, I'm sorry, side to the stamp block, okay? You don't even have to go that crazy because they want to stick to each other, so that's good enough, okay? So now you have those together. All right, so you have your stamp on your stamp block. Now what? All right, so what you want to do is you want to get some ink on your stamp, okay? You don't want too much because then it'll get really squishy and you'll be able to see it, like it'll bleed outside. You don't want to get too little because you want to make sure that you get a clean image. Even, firm pressure over the full design. You don't want to press too hard, otherwise it gets squished. But if you don't give it enough pressure, then you won't get a clean image. Boom, things to remember. And it looks great. I mean, obviously it's a little bit crooked and it's a little bit dry because I took a second to talk to you before I stamped it down. However, that is it's really actually very simple. Even though my instructions may sound difficult, once you get used to it, it's very, very easy. So for me, with this 10-year-old ink pad, I tap 4 or 5 times. You may not need to tap that many, or even firm pressure over the entire stamp, and then voila. And then you can use this a million times. You never have to purchase another one again. Now, let's try that again with a different ink. Okay, so I'm going to pull out one of these, and this time I'm going to pull out this little banner, because say I'm going to talk about the latest season of a show that I'm watching. Okay, so now if you'll recognize, this isn't actually the greatest stamp for this. I should have pulled out a different one. You know what? Let's just pull out a different one. I'm going to pull out this one because I want to show you this. All right, so we're going to pull out this pick of the month. You can see that it has a lot of black. So that means that there's going to be a lot of inked surface area on this particular stamp, right? Okay, so I'm going to get a slightly larger stamp block so that I can get all of this stamp on there. Now they are attached. Now sometimes when you'll buy a brand new stamp set, there's like a film from the manufacturing process on there. A lot of people will say that you need to prime your stamps. I am also one of those people that will say you need to prime your stamps. There are so many ways to prime your stamps. Some people will say, oh, really gently take a nail file and etch it on here. Don't do that. There's no reason to do that, okay? Does it work? Probably, I don't know. I've never done it, but I've read enough people saying to do that. You can also take an eraser and rub it over the surface, and then obviously wipe away all the eraser trails. You could do that, you absolutely can. I don't recommend that one either, just because when I get to the one that I do recommend, I think you'll understand why. You can also take an archival ink pad. So here is archival ink. It is weatherproof, it's permanent, it's acid free. You can use this and stamp, and then just stamp it off, and then now, boom, do that, okay? Again, I really like to clean my stamps, so I'm probably not gonna do that. I'm probably gonna do something else. It's one of the reasons why I don't recommend the nail file, is because I feel like you could potentially ruin it, and it's just really not necessary, right? Like, because there's so many other options where that's not a thing. Okay, so let me clean this off real quick because I still want to show you what I like to do. So what I like to do to prime my stamps, and this will give you a better impression, especially when the stamps are brand new. And also I do it for something like this almost every time because there's a lot of surface area that's gonna get inked and I don't wanna get it screwed up. Okay, so how I prime my stamp is I simply rub it on my skin. Okay, so on the back of my hand, on the back of my arm, I got a lot of skin, right? So I don't need to pull something else out when I can simply use my skin, and this works beautifully. So let me show you the dye ink with this. Now dye ink and a brand new surface area like this, especially a large, dark, can be difficult, but that's why we prime them. So even firm pressure, and we just pull it straight up and boom. So I did get a little extra, a little more ink than I probably should have over there, but it'll dry and it'll be just fine. So you can see right there, we have these really great impressions and there's lots of fun. So let's do that again. Here's that banner that I pulled up already. And again, you'll see it right there. So again, a decent size area for ink. There's going to be a lot of ink right there. Okay, so let's try this Versa Magic that I told you about. This is a chalk ink, which is also pigment ink. It's very juicy. This is also a fairly new ink pad as well, so I mean it's extra juicy, obviously. Okay, so then we are going to push it down, firm, even pressure, pull it right up. So cute. Let me show you what these look like. So they look great. All right, so now remember, this is Archer and Olive paper. There's no bleeding, there's no shadowing, there's nothing on the back, okay? So you can use almost any ink in an Archer and Olive notebook and you're not gonna have any problems. So let's try those with the Happy Planner, which we all know maybe doesn't have quite the same results, okay? So first, we're going to use this Things to Remember with the VersaFine ink pad. We're going to get some ink on it and we're going to stamp, firm, even pressure, pull it straight back up. No rocking. You know, sometimes people want to rock when they've got it down there. Nothing like that. Straight down, straight up, firm, even pressure. And again, it's going to take you a minute to get used to that. Okay, let's do this book club one again. We're gonna do this. This is with the dye ink. And remember, dye ink dyes the threads of the paper. It sinks in and it dyes it. Okay, so we've got some ink on there. We're gonna press down, firm, even pressure throughout the stamp, and we're gonna pull it straight back up. All right, then let's do this little guy right here again, just because we can. And again, I'm just working with stamps I had on my desk. I didn't actually pull anything specifically out for this since I had so many right here. So cute. I love that color. I like those colors together too. That's really pretty. So those look great. Now, okay, so you're thinking, okay, let's try. We've got a couple more here to try. So let's try an icon. So we've got my tiny little ink pad, right? And I'm gonna pull out this fork and knife. So maybe you're gonna do a little meal planning. So you want to put this down. We put the flat side on the ink pad, or on the stamp block, I'm sorry. This is another VersaFine. It is a pigment ink, but it is formulated to dry quickly, and it's formulated for small details, which is great for tiny stamps like this. So maybe I'm gonna meal plan, I'm gonna write my meals every single day, and I just wanna stamp that right across there. So easy to do. All right, and then we'll do one more last but not least. Okay, so we're gonna pull this out because then we want to do another dye ink. Okay, so pull it off the backing. Remember, we don't want to throw either one of these away. We need to keep these for long-term storage or for short-term storage, any type of storage. So we have this is the flat side. We're gonna stick it to the block. Okay, so right there, it's stuck together. Then I'm gonna pull out this Ride the Wave. This is an Ulta New ink pad. It's just a cube, tiny. These can be great when you're testing colors and all of those things. I've used this stamp about 1,500 times, so I don't need to prime it, but I want to remind you to do that. So we're gonna prime it, again, just on your skin. Don't work that hard. Don't make it any more difficult than it needs to be. Okay, so we're just gonna ink this up. This has a felt pad that's holding the ink. I definitely prefer a foam, but felt is nice and firm, and yeah, a lot of dye ink pads are felt. Okay, so now we're gonna put that right here. Firm, even pressure over the whole stamp. Now, one thing that I will remind you that I haven't told you yet is that when you're stamping, you need to stamp on a firm, even pressure. So a lot of people will swear by a mouse pad. Quite frankly, I want my paper, I do it in here because again, I've been stamping for a really long time, so it's really not an issue. But like a nice solid tabletop, with the right priming and the right ink and all of the situation being great, you're gonna get great impressions. Okay, so let's take a look at these. All right, so the Cutlery, that is a VersaFine. The New Season, that is a pigment ink, and there's actually a tiny bit of smearing there, so clearly I smeared it a little bit. The Pick of the Month is a dye ink. Things to Remember is the VersaFine, which is a pigment ink. And then this new My Review is a dye ink as well. So let's turn it over and look at how, okay, these are pretty good actually, to be perfectly honest. So there's some very heavy shadowing in spots on the two dye inks, and that's to be expected, to be perfectly honest. That's how dye ink behaves. Remember, it's soaking into the paper and it's dyeing it, okay? So versus the others that are sitting on top of the paper, but they do require a little bit more time to dry. Now I'm gonna show you, I primarily use a Hobonichi Cousin as my main ride or die planner. This is where I make all my lists, take all my notes, all of those things. So for example, this is a list of books I got going on for February. So I have been stamping to notate books that I've started. Okay, so here is a new book, books that I finished, right? And I also do TV shows as well. So like you can see like Suits, but I didn't stamp right there because I didn't feel like it, but stamping down here, stamping here. So a lot, I do a lot of that, and I always have. If I showed you my last year's planner, the same thing would be, you know, true. I love to layer stamps. American Nightmare we watched. So now you can see right here, you can see that pizza. Can you see that pizza on here? I assume you can. That is where I used the black VersaFine. However, you cannot see any of the rest of those because, well, you can see that one. I used chalk ink. Now, I don't mind a little bit of ghosting, right? So that pizza on the back or that new book stamp on the back, that doesn't bother me. I don't really think that's a big deal. However, I don't have that many colors. So, and some of them shadow worse than others. So what's a girl to do? So I was just using like very pastel dye inks, but they were still shadowing through onto the back. So I wanted something different, hence why I have been trying these pigment inks in my planner. So now, for example, yeah, you can see that a tiny bit on the back, the shadowing, but it's really not that bad. And I have been very, very pleased with that. So that's what I'm doing now. And let me show you, I have a brand new thing I can show you about, actually, you know what I want to show you first. I do also do some swatching. So the actual planner that I'm using, be it this, be it the Hobonichi, be it a different journal, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I'm showing you in planners because that's what I've got right here, but this is all true for your journals, your scrapbooking, whatever the case may be. I like to do this because then I like to be able to see on the back, and I like to see what they look like stamped on this paper. I used to do it in the monthly view. I just decided to do it on these note pages. So this is perfect as far as I'm concerned. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of light shadowing, but there is no bleed through whatsoever. Now these are some Stamp Market dye inks. That's these. They're my favorite. Cute, right? So let's talk about my system for this. They are not all created equal. Some definitely bleed through, like this bright pink, some and this same rusty, some shadow pretty badly. So the same is true on the right side as well. So what I do is I look at the back and then I star the ones that I feel like I can use. However, you can see it's a very limited amount. So that's why I started working with these chalk inks, because there's a wide range of colors and they're great. However, I already told you there is definitely a problem with these. And what is that? Well, they don't dry very quickly. So let me show you what I do to take care of that. I'm going to pull this review stamp off of here, and then I'm going to pull back the backing. I'm going to pull off the finished stamp and set it down. The smooth side is up. I'm going to stick the smooth side to my block. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to prime this just for the sake of reminding you to prime your stamps. And then I'm going to look at this. Okay, what color do I want to use here? All right, so I'm going to use, let's see. I actually have a decent size spread of these. This is new to my collection, so I don't have like, oh my gosh, every single one or anything like that. But I have a decent. Let's go with the wheat. It's kind of light, and I'd prefer show you a darker color, but this matches my layout, so. Okay, so we're just going to ink this stamp up. It doesn't matter if you leave the stamped out. It doesn't matter which way it goes. Honestly, it's just preference. Okay. There's like some hair fuzz or something on here. Okay. Close that back up. All right, now I'm going to, let's put this right here. Even firm pressure, straight down, no rocking or anything like that. Pull it straight back up. Okay, so you can see it says finished. All right, so now I'm going to do the same thing with, I have a little book stamp that I actually keep on a block on my desk because I use this so much that I want to make sure that it's just always handy. All right, so I'm gonna ink this up with black Versa Magic, which is the chalk ink. And then I'm going to layer this on top. Cute, right? Okay, so now this is a heat tool. It's often used in crafting for heat embossing. It's not a perfect system because obviously I keep that hanging on my desk at all times to be able to do that. However, it works great. There's no smearing now at all. And obviously that took 10 seconds or something like that. So that is definitely a great option. There's also blotting papers, and I know those are very popular within the Hobonichi as well. So I prefer this system. I have tried the blotting papers, and I just prefer this. So now I would write, I finished the book, so now I would write, for me, I would write the title of the book, because that's what I do in these instances. Yeah, so that is stamping in the Hobonichi. So now we've talked about stamping. We've talked about the inks. We have talked about the stamps themselves. Now what we haven't talked about is we haven't talked about cleaning the stamps. Now cleaning the stamps can be what you want it to be. So now you'll see right here, I've pulled out this sheet we've already stamped on, okay? The first and easiest way to clean your stamps is just to stamp off the excess. You could do this on a piece of scratch paper. You could do it on a piece of note paper. You can do it anywhere you'd like. It doesn't matter until you get no more ink off the stamp. Then you could remove it and put it back in the package. I'm not going to do that because that's not what I prefer to do. But some people don't mind that at all, because now there's no more ink. You're not going to transfer it. I can pull up this stamp and it'll be fine. The next option, and again, there are more options than this. I'm just showing you some of the easiest, because my goal in this video is to teach you to stamp in a very successful, easy way. The next option is baby wipes. I used this for many, 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 many years. I no longer use this. Okay, so you just pull out a baby wipe. You want it to be alcohol-free, of course, as I believe most baby wipes are, honestly. And it doesn't matter. You have to find the ones that you like. I prefer a wipe, which is not these, by the way. I prefer a wipe that has a little bit of texture. So like maybe a print embossed into it, and does not leave lint on your stamps. Okay, so I used to be fond of the Huggies baby wipes. I couldn't actually find any in a small package when I did my Target pickup order, so I got these Pampers. These actually really work quite well, and they're quite moist, which is nice. Okay, so you could just use baby wipes. You can clean them off with baby wipes. It does a great job, and then you can just toss it away. You can use this on a lot of them, and then, yeah, it's totally clean. Now, here is what I do. I have a microfiber cloth, stays at my desk. You can see it's inky and dirty, and that's the point. And then I use this stamp cleaner. I take my stamp, I give it a spray, and I scrub it on the microfiber cloth. I like this because there's no waste. There's no waste. I'm not throwing away a baby wipe every time. I'm just using a cloth that's literally from my kitchen. I throw it in with my towels when I wash my towels, and I get a new one. It's not a big deal. Yes, I have to buy this. I stamp multiple times a week, and I buy 2 of these a year maybe. Like it's not a huge investment. I like this method very much. It's very, very, very easy, okay? Then I would just put this back in the package. So again, the smooth side goes back in the package. Voila. These will also come in a sleeve, so like this. But not all stamps. They come in usually some sort of package. Not all of them do though. Okay, so that's how I like to clean my stamps. I simply, a squirt, a scrub, and it's clean. So you can do that. That works really, really, really well. I don't have any negatives for that other than having to repurchase this stamp cleaner a couple times a year. And honestly, you could probably use water. I don't know. I haven't done it, but you probably could try. Now, a method that is basically free is to take 2 bowls of water, just a little bit of water, you don't need a lot of water. In one bowl, that's our purple bowl, you put 1 drop of dish soap, not a squirt or anything like that, just a drop. And you put it in your water, you mix it up. This one is just regular water, nothing in it. And these are just room temperature. They're not hot, they're not cold, it's just room temperature. You can give your stamps a bath. So let me find one. Okay, right here. You see this guy's dirty. So we're just gonna pull him off the back. We're gonna put him in our bowl with the soapy water, and I'm just gonna use my fingers to clean the ink off of okay. Then I'm gonna rinse it, get the soap off in the clean water, and then you're just going to place it somewhere to dry. So maybe a paper towel. I actually really like the idea of letting it dry on a microfiber towel because then you're not going to get lint on it. So then it's just gonna dry here, and when it's dry, it'll be super awesome, and you'll stick it right back on your packaging. Now let's do that again. Another thing that this is really great for is that sometimes after stamping a lot, you'll find that your stamps become less sticky. They don't want to stick to the packaging, they fall off. They may even look a little cloudy. It's all just from the oils in your hands and things like that. So what you can do is give your stamps a bath, just like we're doing right now. We're washing them in the soapy water, and remember, 1 drop to some clean water. We're rinsing them, getting the soap off of there, and then we're letting them air dry. This will give them back their stickiness, and they'll be good to go and to go back on your packaging. Now, I highly, highly, highly recommend you use bowls. Do not try this over the sink. These little guys are clear, they're small, and they're slippery. So you will invariably lose one if you try it over the sink. Just pull out a couple of bowls. It's not a big deal, and it works wonderfully. You have questions, please let me know down below. Remember, this is just a couple of ways to do some of these things. There are lots of other ways out there, and if you have something that works better for you, that is wonderful. Keep doing it. However, I just wanted to provide people that are new to stamping some options in case they wanted them. I will link everything I used here today up below in case you want to purchase any of these items for yourself. Otherwise, happy stamping and make it a great day.